This is the Head Rush Podcast with Paul Frase and Corey Berry.
Welcome to the Head Rush Podcast. I'm Paul Frase, and I played 11 years in the NFL, and our co-host, Corey Berry, rode professional rodeo for 9 years. And at the Head Rush Podcast, we talk about everything related to brain trauma and brain health and wellness. We focus on traumatic brain injuries sustained through repeated head impacts, RHIs, and repeated blast exposures for our men and women who serve in the armed forces. We talk about traumatic encephalopathy syndrome and chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and we cover how traumatic brain injuries can and will cause mental health issues such as depression, addiction, lack of executive function, memory loss, even suicide ideation, as well as degenerative neurological issues. Our mantra is how to cope and find hope, and we focus our energy on finding therapies and sharing hope through education and by raising awareness. Corey, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. A little hot in the she shed this evening, so other than that, we're doing good, especially with all these bright lights shining down on me, making me look like a superstar. Thank you, Redbird Media, by the way. Hey, before we get to talking about today's event, I'd like to introduce a guest. We have a guest with us today. You can see him on camera, the pretty bearded boy from Nevada, Rico Petrini. Rico Petrini was from California, I believe, and then you went to Oregon, right? And played for the Beavers.
Correct, yeah.
Give us a little bit of your bio while we're here, since we didn't have one prepped for you.
Well, since he'll be coming up on today's topic, I high school at Sarah High School, where Tom Brady actually played football, and from there went up to Oregon State, was a 4-year starter there at inside linebacker, and had a tryout with the 49ers, but failed the physical due to a knee I didn't know was bad, and of course my 25-plus concussion history. So know a little bit about concussions, and happy to be on the show, and thanks for the invite.
Rico, tell us about, I mean, you were like I'm from New Hampshire. I barely got recruited. And I believe you were like a top recruited, even out of high school. Is that true? What is it, like a blue chip or something like that?
Yeah, at that time they didn't have 5 stars, but they had what they called the blue chip, and it was basically a 4-star, I think was the highest at that time. And I think I was ranked number 3 in the nation at linebacker. Wow. Number 1 was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, which is pretty funny. He was out of Florida at the time, so good company. Willie McGinnis was another one that was up there. So I think I got recruited by over 100 schools, 106, something like that, between Division 1 through 3 altogether. Yeah. So it was a pretty fun time. I did really enjoyed it. Went to Oregon State because they told me I was going to get to start for 4 years, which I was pretty excited about. But yeah, it took a lot of wear and tear on me.
Hey, Paul, you know the difference is in California, there's a lot more players than New Hampshire. Yeah. So people pay more attention to the good players out there because they're not on 6-man football teams.
Hey, I made All-State in basketball and football.
How many players? How many players?
We only had 100. The whole state only had like 100,000 people in it No, it was like literally, it was like 1 million when I was growing up. 1 million people.
You know what, though?
State.
You're top 1% of 1% because you made the NFL, and you not only made it, you also went well beyond the average career length. So yeah, you're staying humble, but you've had a pretty good run yourself.
Well, I definitely.
Yeah,
11 years in the NFL, Super Bowl, and NFC champion. I mean, yeah, I would say he had a pretty darn career.
Do you know what the thing that I'm, I guess, most proud about? Do you remember back in the centennial, year 2000, they had all of those teams. They came out with 50 from each state for the past 100 years, the centennial team. I actually made it for the state of New Hampshire. That was pretty cool.
Awesome.
So you could understand there's not a lot of anyway. We had
but the 50th on that team
yeah.
was probably some bookworm that sold water bottles
Yikes.
because it's New Hampshire. No.
That's right. Hey, when I got to Syracuse, everybody was saying, "Oh, did you come in a horse and buggy? And do you have outhouses there for your family latrines?" Gosh, whatever. What?
That's rough.
You know what?
No
I
respect,
give
no
you
respect, and you're still not getting any respect with Corey around.
Exactly.
Exactly. I was talking with Clint here a little while ago, and we were talking about the elites and the difference of points. And I got to say, Paul, you had to be one of the 1% of the 10% to make the longevity that you did, to make the Super Bowl that you did, to have the years that you had behind you, and the career that you've had. I mean, you were probably one of the top 10% in the NFL as far as longevity, career, accomplishments, the Edward Brock Award twice. I mean, you've got a lot of accomplishments in your pro career.
I appreciate that. Rico, doesn't he sound a lot smarter since he's been doing the red light therapy?
It's got to be the red light.
Go to vlight.com.
His vocabulary is he's even using 2 syllables in his sentences now, the words. It's pretty impressive.
Go to vlight.com.
That's right.
Use our code capital HeadRush VL and get your discount at vlight.com and get your red light therapy going in your photobiomodulation intranasal
PBM.
And I just found something out I've been doing wrong.
What?
I was putting it on the side here, the intranasal on the side. Well, I was doing some reading on V-Light, some more reading just because I can. And I was doing it today, so I actually remembered it has to go past the bone. You have to stick it up far enough to where the dome is above the bone.
Huh. Is that to penetrate the brain barrier, basically?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I wonder if I've been doing that. So like when I did it this morning, I was making sure, man, I was pushing it way up there, making sure that I was up there. It was like, okay, I need to do that.
Well, more impressive than how far you can stick that up your nose is what you told me earlier about you actually had a night of sleep last night where you weren't thrashing and kicking, which I'm sure your wife appreciates.
Yeah, the wife said I did not move last night, and that's got to be the first time in, 27 years.
Wow. That's impressive. Awesome.
So, back towards the episode, go to vlight.com, plug, code HeadRushVL, plug, to get your discount. Also, like, share, comment, subscribe, review, do all the fun stuff. On another sad event that took place recently amongst the retired NFL players, in California, Aldon Smith died while he was with a couple of his former teammates. There's definitely an investigation going on due to some sketchy information and reports, and there is no cause of death currently. But what I really want to talk about is a comment that was made by a familiar sports talk host and worthless piece of beep, 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 Jason Whitlock. And he can go to Fearless. He's got I guess his podcast is called Fearless. Well, he's actually got to be scared because he did not show up today for the Head Rush podcast because he don't want to talk about this. And Rico, I want to take it to you right off the get-go on this one. This is going to be a short excerpt that I just want to do because of Jason Whitlock and Tom Brady and all the...
If you or someone you love is living with Parkinson's, MS, or symptoms associated with CTE, this is worth knowing. Ambio Life Sciences offers a novel alternative medicine called Ibogaine and operates the only Ibogaine clinic in the world for people with neurodegenerative disorders.
Many are reporting meaningful improvements in their quality of life after Ibogaine treatment. Interested? You can learn more about Ibogaine and apply at ambio.life. Is you just said you went to the same high school as Tom Brady.
Yeah, I mean that unfortunately Tom has kind of jumped on the same bandwagon with Mr. Whitlock and is saying that the protections for CTE or brain injury in the NFL right now and the changes with hitting and so forth is really softening things up, to paraphrase what he said, and that it's probably not necessary. And then Mr. Whitlock also just saying that it's CTE is a load of garbage basically. And, the combo of those two is really striking to me, especially, coming from Tom. I didn't play directly with him. I was a senior when he was inbound to Sarah High School. I did take him around and show him the school because he was one of our top recruits from the Catholic under schools to go to the high school. So I kind of showed him around campus. But, I was dating the coach's daughter, so I got a pretty good inside view of Tom as he went through high school and then on from there. But, he's a gritty player. He's a hard nose. He's old school. I think he, in his mind, thinks that he is trying to keep the game back to the old romanticized, beat the snot out of each other. But, saying things like that is really irresponsible, especially in light of, you look at what Tom has seen himself. If you guys remember when Antonio Brown short-circuited and ended up getting picked up by Tampa, Tom, in order to kind of try to keep Antonio straight, had him living with him and Giselle. And I am most certain Tom got his share of CTE experience during that time when he was living with them, to know that this is very real and it causes changes in mood, behavior, etc. In addition to him being a teammate. But that was one of the things that really stuck out with me was that. And then also the fact that one of the most prolific CTE cases early on was Aaron Hernandez, and this is one of Tom's top targets. And again, somebody that he confided in and saw every day, and definitely was in tune with what was going on with that whole situation, what was going down with his personal health. So I feel like that was probably not a good decision on his part to step out and do this. But being that he's an owner now and a broadcaster, and you kind of keep your P's and Q's in line with the NFL and what Mr. Goodell once said, I think that probably has something to do with it, because I can't see any other reason as to why.
I kind of liken it to what I've been through an evolution of, okay, it's not good to hit your head, but I was sitting with Chris Nowinski in the owner's box in the Jaguars game, and I said, Chris, I chose to play this game. I know it was not healthy to hit my head again and again and again against a 300-pound guy, but and Chris said, hey, what about the 7-year-old kids whose brains are not even developed? So that's where I see the total irresponsibility of a statement like that. Keep it tough, keep it mean, keep it gritty. Okay, for adults, not for kids. I mean,
yes.
Flag football until 18 now. The kid and the educating the parents about the brain is key. And then when they're educated, they're fully culpable for the mental health of their child. if they strap a helmet on them at 7 years old. That's kind of I've gone full circle for that. But yeah, I mean, Tom's not thinking about the 7-year-olds.
No,
He has
and
two.
I
He has
think
He has two boys, I believe, maybe three. I lost count, but he should be thinking about that, and he should be.
I bet they're quarterbacks.
He should be thinking about everybody else's sons too, because he
You're
is
right.
one of the most prominent names in the NFL and in football in general. And you're right. I mean, parents are going to trust what he says, and they're going to follow his lead with how to approach this new territory. And he could be somebody that helps us create some safety instead of somebody that sets us back and creates more obstacles for us to have to work through to protect kids and protect players in general. So yeah, I'm pretty disappointed, even though he's a fellow Padre and somebody that I personally respect for his game and other aspects of his life. But this is not something that was a good decision on his part,
No.
unfortunately.
well, and I got to give him a little bit of leniency, not very damn much, but a little bit, because he is still connected to the NFL. He is still an NFL commentator. He's still getting paid the money by the NFL and everything he's doing. So we all know about greed and money and what it does to people. And maybe that's his CTE thing, is money's more important than truth and honesty. And now we move on. And we only brought this up because Tom Brady decided he wanted to do an article about it. So we talked about it. And now on June 16th, as you guys have seen on our podcast and on our Facebook and Instagram, I called out Jason Whitlock and invited him onto this podcast today. He came on June 16th on X and said CTE is a joke. Aldon Smith drank and drugged most of his life, troubled kid with a troubled past, but let's blame football. CTE is a crock. Now,
So
you've all heard me talk about it and what I say. I want to get, Paul, your take on it, and then Rico's take on that comment alone, because I also talked to Brandy Winans, and I guess when Jason Whitlock was with ESPN or whoever back in the day, he talked a lot of trash about Jeff. And so a guy like this, I tell you what, I would like to have his CTE rage alongside his head one day.
So it makes me think, I saw the statement and I'm like, out of context, this guy's he's not looking at the science. He's not educated on CTE. He has not looked at the scientific papers and the peer-reviewed papers and the fact that CTE is caused by repeated head impact. So, moron. I mean, ignorant. But then you go to see what happened. Corey, give the some of the surrounding events of Aldon Smith's death. And Aldon did have I guess, a troubled life when it comes to drinking and drugging.
Well, I think Rico could probably talk about Aldon even a little bit better than I can.
Yeah, like I said, I grew up in the Bay Area, and I've been a 49er fan since I was born, basically. My dad had tickets, went to all the Super Bowls, followed the team. My dream was obviously to play for them, so getting a tryout was, a lifetime, fantasy for me to even step out on the field for one day. But with Aldon, he was an incredible player, incredible talent. He took a lot of hits, and we know those linemen in particular, they do get every single down, they're getting head-on-head contact just by the way they're positioned, and we've talked about the brain slosh and the prefrontal cortex damage and what happens with that. And it's no surprise, when guys have addiction issues, you know, GABA, okay, when you have an amygdala hijack, right? When you have that fight or flight response, the only thing that is a break for the brain is GABA. And your body makes it, but when you've got a damaged brain, it doesn't make enough of it. So you get out of control, right? But the only thing that you can do to also get more GABA into your body is fermented foods and alcohol. Okay, so what, you know, we keep seeing this correlation with players that are alcoholics and veterans that are alcoholics. And I'm not saying that's the sole variable in alcoholism or drinking, or necessarily, I mean, there's genetics, there's a host of other things. But I would certainly argue that with this many hits and with this much potential damage, when you get into that fight or flight, which we have all experienced, right? I mean, the only way to get out of that is and to get some sort of soothing. I mean, I had some drinking. I wouldn't say I was at an alcoholic level, but I certainly, when I was getting ramped up and having, you know, light and sound sensitivity issues and crowd issues, it definitely helped take the edge off, because it binds to those GABA receptors and shuts down that fight or flight response. So that's one side to it. And I've talked to a multitude of players. I mean, I've probably spoken to over 50 NFL players that have suspected CTE or in their families. And a common theme is with the head pressure in particular and the head pain, cocaine and other drugs like that, the opiates, also help with that inflammation and also with the pain, the sensory pain that they have in their head. And I knew of a couple guys that had never touched a drug before they started having CTE issues, and they were actually using it to try to numb those sensations and the pressures that they were having with their head. So, you know, which the chicken or the egg argument here? Was he an alcoholic before this, or did he become an alcoholic and drug user because of his contact? And I'm not making excuses, but I think it has to be considered when you try to do an assessment of a guy's life, rather than, you know, the NFL, frankly, I remember in the early 2020s, you know, the NFL is 73% black. And when guys were getting arrested and having issues that probably could have been potentially CTE or neuro-related issues, there was a racial bias that, they came from a bad background, or they grew up in a tough neighborhood, and they were trying to suggest that might be the culprit or the cause of what was actually, you know, what could have been the mood and behavioral changes from the brain contact, you know. And, you know, guys getting called thugs because they, you know, suddenly after a career and maybe a pre-career where they had no criminal engagement or contact, they play for 5 or 10 years, and now suddenly they're having trouble with the law, and they're having these changes in domestic violence and all these other things that suddenly just pop up that were never in their history. We got to look a little deeper instead of just taking the broad brush and saying they had a bad childhood or they grew up in a rough neighborhood, or, you know, the racial profiling that was done in the past. Even the NFL concussion suit had racial bias in it when talking about the IQ of the athletes. So there's a lot. It gets really messy. And when it gets that messy, you start following the money and you start to get a little clearer picture. So, you know, I think in this case, there's a lot of push both in the VA and also with the NFL to try to find a way to make this the individual acting out, or the individual having an issue, versus it being a broader brain damage issue that causes these certain symptoms that we see time and time again that are prevalent, that are causing the same types of destructions in family and causing bad decisions, etc. So that's what I think. I think with Aldon, thankfully, his family is elected to donate his brain to Boston University, and we're going to get those answers fast. And Mr. Whitlock is going to be, I bet everything I have right now that Mr. Whitlock is going to be eating crow, that Aldon is probably stage 3 or stage 4, you know, like an Aaron Hernandez type situation. And it'll be interesting to see that unfold, in the months to come.
Well, that's it's
Well,
kind of, I was thinking of through his statement, and it's ignorant. If he knows about CTE, it's negligent. We can say, okay, Aldon Smith drank and drugged. Okay. Which came first, the repeated head impacts or his addictive personality? I mean, it's almost like we can say, and you already mentioned Aaron Hernandez from the New England Patriots. What a story that was, and that unraveled to be. But we could say, okay, he had sociopathic tendencies his whole life because he was abused. CTE had nothing to do with it. It's a crock. Well, he hung himself.
How about the Aldon Smith that actually, when he passed away, was delivering food to the homeless?
Right. Right.
Can we make sure we get some balance to his life, that we don't just immediately try to pinpoint something else that may have been related to causation from his brain injury, and just say, and try to paint him as a bad person. Watching him play football and seeing him with the 49ers, he was a very active in the community. And, he had his run-ins, but, I think those that played with him had a lot of really great things to say about him as a person and his character. So I hate when guys get painted a certain way after death when they can't defend themselves, and in a situation like this, that's not right.
I mean, and that's what we really want to talk about a lot on this show, is you also look at it. The guy just got done delivering pizzas to the homeless. Do you think Jason Whitlock's ever delivered a pizza to the homeless to begin with? And then he comes back, and when EMS comes, they put him in front of the car. So it wasn't that he was on a drunken stupor or overdosing or all of this. He was delivering freaking pizzas to the homeless. And for you to come out and just say what you said about a man that did a lot of good for the Bay Area, I think, had a lot of accomplishments with the 49ers. And yes, he had issues, but you know what? There's a lot of NFL players with a lot of issues that get pulled over by police or domestic abuse, and that's a whole nother topic we could go on. Is it the money? Is it entitlement? Is it what? I don't even want to get on that subject.
Yeah, I mean, we have Doug Martin in Oakland, the incident that he had in Oakland, and that one's still unfolding, and the same situation. His brain has been donated, and we're going to probably hear about his CTE results as well. But this is far too common and too high of a percentage of criminal behavior to just say that every guy that goes into the NFL, is a bad dude, or to place it on them. I mean, there's obviously some transformation or something that's happening or something that is helping at least exasperate, things, and make it, make these mood behavior, cognitive, the apathy, the impulsivity, the addiction that we all know that comes from prefrontal cortex damage. These are the things that are being expressed, and they're being expressed in a very high, irregular number with our pro sports athletes that are in contact sports. So we have to, and it goes for MMA too. We just had another MMA fighter get in trouble because of an incident in the airport. Same thing, alcohol and threatening to beat up the flight crew, and things like that are just not a normal response. So you have to look at that and go, this is completely irrational. There is definitely something else that is triggering this here. But Mr. Whitlock, back to him, I think the last thing I would say about that is, another guy that he worked with over there was Ray Lewis. And I'd like to hear him have a nice one-on-one with Ray Lewis, not only about what probably Ray Lewis experiences, but the fact that Ray Lewis lost his son to CTE, and see if CTE is a crock to Mr. Lewis, because I think his fists would have something to say about that. But, again, these guys have the direct connections. They have the direct exposure. They know what's happening. So when they say things like this, they're either doing it to get likes or to get their name out there in the media and get some controversy started, or they're trying to appease their masters, and say the party line, because they know too much to be this stupid, unless he truly is that stupid. I don't know the guy that personally, but to say.
Have you ever met him, Paul?
No, but I mean, the way I kind of broke it down is he's not a doctor. We tell everybody we're not doctors, we're not physicians. Go see your physician, interview your physicians first. Corey is great at that, making sure that the neurologist actually has repeated head impacts or traumatic brain injury in their repertoire, and they actually consider what can happen to brain health and wellness, or brain damage, or what brain damage will cause and can cause to your mental health. But so he's not a doctor. He's not a PhD. He's not a researcher. And I don't know how much he's studied CTE, right? So the causes of CTE and the symptoms that accompany RHI, the apathy, the addictive personality, the rage, the unbridled rage, so on and so forth, the memory loss, the lack of executive function, on and on and on. So he has less evidence to stand on his ignorant statement than Aldon's family, but when it comes to CTE, because yes, Aldon, who knows what was involved with his death? He drinking, drugging, whatever it was. But the fact of the matter is, the family, when it comes to CTE and the cause of his death and what effects CTE will have on a person, has every right in the world to say, we're sending our son's brain to a known institution worldwide to find out if our son suffered from CTE. And maybe we can figure out why some of these personality traits surfaced in Aldon's life, or why he struggled so bad with them. Because yes, alcoholism is real. You don't have to have CTE to be an alcoholic, or have an addictive personality. But
when we do address CTE the way it's happening, where every time a guy has an incident with the police, or they have a bad past or whatever, and we try to make that as the primary focus, is he was just a bad person. What we're really doing is we're putting many more guys in the closet, and
right.
We're making them go, if you talk about this is what's going to come out. They're going to say
right.
You're a sex and porn addict. They're going to say you're a drug addict. They're going to say you're a spousal abuser. They're going to find that thing, how unfortunately your condition manifested, and they're going to exploit that. And what we need to do is look at an Aldon Smith situation and go, you know what? We don't know what happened right now, but I think it's for all of our good. We have a great university that wants to get down to the bottom of this. Let's check his brain out, and let's make these guys understand that, this is okay. This is something that happened to you. It's not you. It's not your core essence. It's not your being, right? And let's develop programs that make it open and supportive for ex-players and even current players, that they have that confidentiality, that they can go and share that they're having dark thoughts, that they're struggling, and not have to worry about if they're going to get cut, or have to worry about if it's going to go public, or that they're going to be shamed about, something that's a neurological response. These are all things that are happening because of the damage to that part of their brain, and we can all say that because we experienced it. Thankfully, I'm in a much better place than I was, but 5 years ago, everything that happened, I think I could look at and say that could have been me. Honestly, I was impulsive. I made reckless decisions. I had the apathy. I didn't care. And that's not part of my character of who I am. That's the chemical signaling and the damage that was done. And as I've gotten better with treatments, I don't have those feelings anymore. So that reinforces that this is in fact causation from the brain injury versus me just being a bad guy, from a bad upbringing, from or a drunkie, or all of these other labels that we want to put on these guys. We need to take a hard look at this biological process and what is really happening to these guys. That's where the focus is.
Well,
let's look at Paulie. Let's look at Paulie, Mr. Paulie Frase, Paul Frase. 11 years NFL. Born and raised in New Hampshire. You want to talk about a white picket fence? His father was a pastor. What was your mother?
She was an English teacher, but she was she was a housewife. She raised 4 hooligans. Well, my sister was not a hooligan, but my 3 brothers and my 2 brothers and I were. I was the third. Go ahead.
So you're looking at the perfect freaking, not Leave It to Beaver. Who was it back in the 60s that had the perfect family on TV?
That was the Brady Bunch or the Leave It to Beaver or what? I don't know, whatever. California was Brady Bunch.
Yeah, the Andy Griffin Show, Leave It to Beaver.
Andy Griffin Show is what I'm thinking of. You want to talk about the perfect Andy Griffin Show? It was Paul Frase. So Paul Frase plays football and basketball in high school. He goes on to Syracuse, plays football in Syracuse, gets drafted by the Jets, and has a great NFL career. Paul, when did you start having a drinking problem? Were you a drunk in high school?
I drank in high school on weekends.
Did you have a drinking problem in high school?
I didn't have a problem. No. I drank and I got drunk. I guess is that a problem?
We'll call him an opportunist.
An opportunist.
Okay.
When did you got married when you were playing with the Jets? Did you have an alcohol problem when you said I do?
No, because I had quit for 18 months. I definitely had an alcohol problem in college, and my second year in the NFL, my roommate, I had an unbelievably ridiculous, unbridled rage moment standing in a bar in New York City. It was packed, and this kid was smoking a cigarette back when you can smoke cigarettes in a bar, and he walked past me, and his cigarette butt burned my shirt, and I just went ballistic, and I was yelling out. I mean, just jugular, like it was a CTE moment, which I definitely experienced at 47 years old. I didn't know what it was when I had it back then, but my buddy actually. Came to me and he says, Paul, I don't know what's going on, but the alcohol is changing you. And I actually quit for 18, maybe 20, 24 months. And yeah.
How long you been sober now?
8 years. But that was a miracle. That was a white light miracle. Standing in the Mayo Clinic. Yeah, go ahead.
So when Paul Frase dies, and we send his brain to Boston University, Jason Whitlock's going to go, well, Paul Frase, he was a drunk and he did all this. CTE's a joke. He came from a freaking picture perfect freaking Leave It to Beaver, Andy Griffin lifestyle in New Hampshire to this. So that's where I go back with this Jason Whitlock, and we can keep going on and on. I don't want to make this guy as famous as he thinks he is, by no means. But that's where you're right, Rico, 100%. You look at me. Yes, I had a broken home. Yes, I did a lot of stupid stuff. But alcohol was a little bit part of it, maybe a CTE moment, but not knowing what it was. But you look at it, instead of calling people out for what they did wrong, like I just called out Paul, he was a drunk. How about look at his whole life and what Paul has done? And after Paul, have you ever delivered pizza to the homeless?
Oh, I've delivered turkeys to the homeless or to people that needed a Thanksgiving dinner.
There you go. Just like Aldon Smith, instead of pizzas, you delivered turkeys. You know, we need to look at the individuals. Yes, we all have. I know for a fact that I've always had that brutality in me, the fight in me. I was always very aggressive. I was always very, that way.
Speaking for myself, I mean, I had, like I said, in 2021 is when everything kind of manifested for me, and the mood behavioral changes and the explosive anger and all the other things that came with that. And yet, if you went back and looked at my life, my parents have been married 54 years. I went to a Catholic high school, was raised in a spiritual home. I never even had a tardy in high school, even in college, never got into trouble. These things, these types of behavioral changes did not exist. I was never depressed. I was never explosive anger. I was a happy-go-lucky guy. I like to make people laugh. I'm not that person that the injury made me become. And like when you were telling your story, Paul, about the explosive incident, what I found interesting is that the key thing you still remember from that day is that it was a really overly packed bar. And I know from my experience, whenever I would go out in public, I used to attribute it to, I'm an Italian, I have to face the door, right? But no, I always had to really pick where I sat because I would get triggered from all the noise in really loud restaurants. And I could feel myself, like my clenching, and, I could feel my neck popping. And it was a precursor to an episode. The light and sound and the crowd, those are all triggers to that amygdala hijack. So you had one of those episodes right there, which, to your friend's point, the cigarette butt was probably not the thing. And the alcohol, probably you were trying to probably calm yourself, because when you went out in public, it was probably really hard for you to be in a packed college or crowd setting and not feel triggered. So the alcohol was your brain trying to find what it needed to put the brakes on to the amygdala hijack, right? But a little incident, like a little cigarette butt in a crowded place that you're already triggered, and it escalated fast. And I get that 100%. And if you talk to anybody that has dealt with this injury, their families, they're going to tell you, oh yeah, I could name 50 episodes like that, or incidents where we saw a change in dad because of his surroundings or the environment, or things that triggered a response in him.
I just got an aha moment from Rico. Another aha. All the
This episode of the Head Rush Podcast is brought to you by our personal doctor and team of doctors, Dr. Mizelle DeMayo, and she's with the Paradise Behavioral Health, and we are in the
Brainwell program, which is also part of the Millennium Health Center. Dr. Mark Gordon, you've seen him on Joe Rogan and even on our show, the Head Rush Podcast. And hormones. And Mizelle is awesome. We love her.
She's our doctor of psychiatry. She works the Mark Gordon program with the hormones, and she adds her twist of genetics, and it basically is melding two wonderful mediums together, and we're getting great help from Dr. Mizelle DeMayo.
So please check out her website at paradisebehavioral.com. Look up the Brainwell program. Get involved.
She's sponsoring us. They're sponsoring us for the next year, so we are excited to have them on board and shout the good news to everybody that is watching these broadcasts. So,
is she helping you, Paul?
Absolutely.
She's helping me. So go check her out. Paradise Behavioral Health. I've done was in packed places. I've always had to have my back to the door, still do today. I always got to know what my surroundings are. I never thought about the fights I got in and everything at a younger age, like you just explained. And it all kind of makes sense. I mean, I thought it was just me being not a bully, but a very proud man that stood up for his values. Huh.
Well, it's how we're trained and how we're built. So your response is going to be to fight, right? When you're threatened. That's how we had to handle it on the field, or tackling these massive animals you were riding. I mean, that you got to have that kind of mindset. But that when your brain is perceiving you're being threatened and you're really not threatened, that's where the problem happens, because you're having that same type of combative response in a context that doesn't warrant it, and that's where the trouble starts. I definitely feel you.
I want to, in a few minutes, I want to get back to you, Rico, and how you came out of your funk after, how are you doing after 5 years of good, solid therapy? But back to Whitlock, and basically, Jason Whitlock, he was careless and ignorant in his comments, and the problem is that this is not the first time the media has tried to disgrace and shift blame and players' actions and ultimately deaths surrounding the NFL in particular. And you've met Brandy Winans. I don't know if you ever knew Jeff Winans. Do you remember Brandy? Well, Jeff Winans was one of the first guys that was shortly diagnosed after Mike Webster, a few years after, I believe. But so she's a dear friend of ours. She's actually on the board of the foundation, but she came under attack when she had Jeff's brain studied at Boston University, and it was before Ann McKee could definitively diagnose. She felt she was looking at CTE, but this was so early back in the day. And since she went back and actually diagnosed Jeff Winans stage 3 CTA, but she was maligned. She said there were several reporters that just tore them apart, about CTE, and we've basically we know Merrill Hodge wrote a book, and I think it's Brainwashed, and he talks about a lot of the bad science of CTE. Well, I don't think that they would still put that in print at this point. It would be interesting if they had a rewrite. And Dr. Paul Cummings, he was trying to make a name for himself. This is straight from Jeff Winans' wife, Brandy Winans, but she said he was trying to make a name for himself. He was horrible to them. And he said Jeff didn't even have CTE. He claimed that Dr. Ann McKee didn't have the kind of credentials to make that diagnosis. And they even degraded Jeff in the book. Really sad. And man.
Yeah, and yet the NFL, when they put together their CTE and concussion group, wasn't it the New York Giants doctor? Wasn't he like a respiratory specialist?
It was my personal doctor.
Apparently,
really quick before you finish that story, but really quick, he was my MD doctor at the New York Jets. Good guy, but they used him as a pawn. But go ahead.
Right. No, that was to your point. I was just going to say he had no place being in that and leading that from his expertise. So
there was not a neurologist on the symposium, the group that they had research the effects of concussions long-term effects of concussions. And they had poor Dr. Pellman standing up or on in court saying there's no repercussions long-term for multiple concussions, when the DOD had studied it back in the 40s, and pugilism and punch drunk, and they had plenty of research about repeated head impacts can and will cause mental health and brain damage. And we all know that was, gosh, what a cover up. And they still, I think the NFL was glad that the NFL, settlement, the concussion settlement got settled. One, they were able to expunge CTE out of the compensatory damage.
Right.
And two, they don't have to talk about it anymore. They get these young kids that are making $850,000, the minimum wage, and they get those young kids to sign on the dotted line.
I literally talked to an ex-player's wife today, and there's a lot of families that still haven't even been paid out.
Oh no.
I know it. This guy is. I'm not going to say anything because I want to protect his family and all of that. But a guy dealing with obvious Parkinson's, a very severe case, went to Boston U, was told they literally looked at him in horror and said he's one of the worst they've ever seen, and a living example of this. And yet his family has to play this game that they won't be paid on CTE. The NFL made it very clear. If you have a CTE diagnosis, you're excluded. So he has to either get dementia or Parkinson's. So if they go the dementia route, these neurologists are only ones that are approved by the NFL. Well, guess what the neurologists are doing? They're saying, oh, I think you just have amnesia, or you have this. And so, only 3% of the cases are getting qualified on the first round. So they usually have to petition and go back. And we all know when you see Anne's work, who has looked at more brains and spent more of her life than anybody else. I'm sorry, I trust her above all else. And they're seeing a 93% prevalence of CTE in the brains that they're seeing. You can't tell me that there's only a 3% group of NFL players with neurological issues, and yet that's initially the accepted claim rate with the NFL. And this is an individual who initially, got biased because of what I was talking about earlier, that black athletes were scored differently because it was believed that they didn't have the IQ of the white athletes. And this is straight from the suit.
Oh my God.
And so they were being scored at a much more challenging level. That when they were having lower testing results, they were making an adjustment because of the perceived IQ levels that were lower, which is, in this day and age, that's just obscene to think that was even somebody even concocted something like that evil. But that shows you how much money is involved and what's at play here. And like this individual, he has Parkinson's, so eventually he'll get paid on that. But this suit was 2017. It's 2025, and they still haven't received a check.
So I was
They're
part of
hoping
the
he will
original.
die.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I jumped in, but I was part of the original PAC, the Players Advocacy Committee, and we actually sat with Seegers. We actually sat with through Zoom meetings with the special masters, who directly talked with Judge Brody. I jumped off it after a year and a half. It just was not. We weren't moving the needle enough, and I wasn't happy with the direction it was going. But a friend of mine is still on the PAC committee. 160 claims went through in 2024, might have been 2025. 100% got denied and got sent back through appeals. These are guys like the Parkinson's guy you were just explaining, on doing all the paperwork, seeing all the doctors, and jumping through all the hoops, and and they literally get sent back. They get denied, and they have to go through the whole process again. And there were clearly people on of those 160 players that deserved a payout of some sort because they were dealing with,
Right.
Dementia, ALS, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, you name it, but not CTE. They'll never pay out in CTE.
I hear from the public that, well, these guys got paid well, blah, 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 like almost implying like they knew the risk. It's kind of on them now if they have to live with what. And I'm like, you know what? You would never say that about any other employee with an employer, Like if I was a forklift operator in a warehouse and I got crushed by a pallet or something and had lifelong injuries, they wouldn't go, well, a normal warehouse guy gets $12 an hour. You drove the forklift to get 25. So you kind of knew the extra risk. So you've been compensated for it. That would be insane. There would be let's get this guy the lifetime care that they need. Let's make sure that they have medical. Let's make sure that the parts of them that are damaged that they cannot have a good quality of life for, that's factored in whatever award we give them. These guys are not getting any of those things. In fact, again, this individual doesn't even have medical with the NFL right now. They dropped him out of the medical plan. So, again, it's just, and this is just one of many, many stories of families. And there's others. The NFL Wives Club is a great one to talk to, and hopefully we'll get them on. Stephanie. She deals with a lot of these players directly. Her husband was on the Bears. She sees this day in, day out, and the stories are heartbreaking. And, like Aldon Smith, when I being a Niner fan, if you would have told me I could get an Aldon Smith jersey, there wouldn't have been anybody happier at that time. That guy was a baller, and he would be proud to wear it. He was, but, now we demonize his name, and that's not fair to, if you would wear that guy's jersey like Doug Martin, and you'd wear it with pride to go to one of his games, and you don't support his family or his legacy and believe that he was a good person off the field as well, you have the character issue, not that person.
Yeah.
Well, you look at Brett Favre. Brett Favre has Parkinson's.
Right.
And he flat told us on the podcast that you get it two ways: genetics, or three ways: genetics, food, or repeated head impacts. There's never been Parkinson's in his family. And he eats pretty darn healthy, being a quarterback of his stature. So more than likely, he got Parkinson's from repeated head impact. And so you look at it, and then I look at other Cowboys that, I talk to. Well, hell, we just got done talking to Alan, who sparred with Mike Tyson and all of them back in New York. I mean, this is a brain health issue. It's not a mental health issue. We all have genes in our life that could have made us go a different direction. I think everybody does. Paul does, you do. I think all of us had a little aspect in our brain, as competitive as we were and are. I'm still pretty damn competitive. That could have made us go a different direction, but we chose not to. Even with repeated head impacts, we chose not to. So people, I'm not going to give everybody a free buy on CTE like Aaron Hernandez and Chris Benoit and my buddy that killed himself and his wife. I'm not giving them free passes because they chose to take that little Y that they didn't have to take. But there's a certain level, and I think back then you look at a lot of the people where CTE was the hidden gem, like what you said, and these professional athletes, the football players and the wrestlers and everybody that had it, In them days, CTE was not even thought about. CTE wasn't even a topic of discussion, and it was hidden in the NFL locker rooms. It was hidden in the wrestling locker rooms. It was hidden everywhere. So they mirrored it with alcohol and drugs. And they mirrored it by doing other stuff to get the rage out or whatever. So that I give them their credit for, but I'm not going to sit here and say if you got CTE, it's okay to kill somebody. Just like I'm not going to tell Jason Whitlock that he has a right not to speak his mind. He does. I welcome him on this podcast still today to come on and speak his mind, because our soldiers died for that right of him to have that freedom of speech. But I also have a right. It's kind of like, what did someone say? I had a friend, we had a discussion. What was it? Oh, burning the American flag. Well, people got a right. Soldiers died for them to have the right to burn the American flag. And I said, yeah, and the same soldiers gave me a right to whip
This
their
episode of the Head Rush Podcast is brought to you by the Patrick Risha CTE Awareness Foundation. Their goal is to spread awareness about the dangers of RHI, repetitive head impacts, after losing their son, Patrick, to CTE. Sadly, there are too many like Patrick that have lost their families, jobs, and sometimes their lives. And this foundation is working hard to stop the devastation that can come from not protecting the brain. This foundation provides parents of school-age children with information about the dangers of sports, concussive sports, and activities which involve head trauma.
They advertise on social media, print media, and billboards. Please follow them on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and share their ads with others. And please visit their website, stopcte.org, to find ways to help people recognize the disease if confronted with it in their family, and how to prevent the suffering that can come to families when a brain is damaged. The website has medical forms to take to doctor's visits and advocacy letters if you want to help make change in your community. And their most recent campaign is geared up to help coaches build brain-healthy teams. You can use the information on stopcte.org website to understand CTE, live with CTE, and prevent CTE. Please visit. Thank you. And don't knock it.
There you go.
StopCTE.org.
If we have time,
Yeah.
you made me think of a story, because you said, CTE doesn't make these people do this, or they can't be attributed, it can't be the why of a murderer or so forth. I'm going to challenge that. Again, I'm not saying it's every case, but I can give you another personal case that hopefully will make people think about this a little more. I know of a guy, Justin Bannon, that played for the Broncos and was an incredible player for Colorado, that's sitting in a prison right now doing 18 years for what they charged him with was first degree premeditated attempted murder on an individual. And what had happened is he actually founded a company called Black Labs, because he was having brain injuries. His brain injury was causing issues with him, and he was into supplements and things. So he's trying to find things to help people with CTE and brain injury. So he was actively working on it, knowing that he had an issue. He owned a building. What happened that set this up was his best friend that he played with was part of the NFL settlement as well, and ended up taking his life. And when they went to the house, they found the NFL settlement papers sitting on the table. So it literally triggered his best friend. And in that happening, I've talked about it before, that CTE can often, and this has been talked about by the experts, that it can be triggered, your symptoms can be triggered by a catastrophic catastrophic event in your life, like death in the family, a divorce, financial loss. And in my case, that's what happened with me in 2021. My wife was in the ICU, it triggered me, and I had all this cascading. In this case, Justin, after this happened with his friend, ended up getting very delusional. He thought the Russian mob was following him. He had head pressure, which was undiagnosed and unexplained to him by his doctors, which turned out to be a very severe case of hydrocephalus, which can cause pressure on the brain, which was causing him to have these delusions. So in a normal day, he's hiding, he's got his phone in tinfoil, he's wrapping things. He goes into his building that he owns and is hiding in the doorway of one of the suites that he has access to. And a masseuse happens to come in that works in that suite that day, and he's thinking the Russian mob's following him. And she opens the door and he fires on her, believing in his mind that these people are following him, and hits her in the shoulder. And, she ends up going to the ER, and thankfully it wasn't a critical injury, and she was discharged the same day. But the courts threw everything at him. They said, you're a bad person, and, you planned this, and you stalked her, and he had only seen her in passing one time before in the building. He waited for the police to show up after he realized it was wrong. All of these elements were overlooked because he was a football player, and he's sitting behind bars right now. And this is a guy that did a huge amount of charity work for, his college, Buffaloes for Life. There's a program. He helped them with that. He was trying to find supplements and programs to help people with CTE. He was trying to fix himself. He has, a daughter and a wife that cared about him deeply, that were trying to get him help. And he got ostracized in the press and got made out to be this druggy, loser. And, as soon as after he was put in jail, they finally looked at his brain, and they finally got him. They realized he had this hydrocephalus severely, and they got him a shunt, and they got the drainage. And hey, guess what? He didn't have any more episodes after that. It actually resolved the head pressure and the delusion and all of these other things. Little too late, he's sitting in jail right now. But, you look at that case and say, did CTE make him do it? Well, CTE didn't pull the trigger, obviously, but in his mind, in his experience, in that framework of what he was in, he very much felt like he was threatened. His life was threatened. And, with certainty, he had no intent to harm that girl. So she happened to be the one that opened that door. And
there's many stories that are not unlike that of minds going awry. I mean, guys getting paranoid, thinking of killing 6 people and then killing themselves, or whatever it was, or it is. But yeah, that was caused by CTE. But
that story, yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and when I did a local piece about CTE and my brain journey on the news, I actually did talk to a father who lost his son to suicide from what ended up being CTE. And he was only a high school player and had barely played college. And his dad told me they owned some rural property over by where I lived at that time. And his dad told me that his son used to go out and point to him and go, "Dad, do you see them?" And he thought the Russians were trying to move in on their property. And he was very fearful and had this paranoia. And there are a lot of cases, if you go back and if you Google search CTE and paranoia, you'll see 20 cases of guys that have similar situations where they had this belief, or they took their life, or they took someone else's life, or they believed this context. And again, that's the brain damage. And we got to catch it before that. We got to get these guys immediate scans and care and testing that actually is non-biased, the interests of the NFL and all these other parties need to be put aside. We need to focus on the human and their family and their life after sports and give them what they deserve, which is an unbiased clinical breakdown before they go out in public of where they stand with things, and not make them feel like a monster. Make them understand what the reality of their damage is so that they can get the treatment and care to manage their symptoms. Because you can live with this. That's the one thing I will say is CTE didn't pull the trigger, but CTE also is not keeping me from trying to find ways to get myself better or to do the work. And there are things that are working right now that can prevent some of these other outcomes if these guys, in many cases, even knew that there were options.
Yeah.
Well, that's how I look at it, and you're 100% right. It's kind of like when I raged at the QT, Paul, at that guy. I didn't know I was going after that guy until my wife grabbed my belt loop, and I was already halfway across the parking lot.
Right.
You know, and I remember having a little bit of paranoia, and after the car wreck, I had a little bit of paranoia. But I remember after a big hit in the head, when I got kicked in the head, I had paranoia that people were coming to my door and stuff. You know, I don't want the public to think that we're giving a clean slate to all this stuff that goes on and says, you know, well, CTE did it. I'm not doing that. There is certain realms like your buddy, or certain realms like when I was in that rage. If I would have killed that guy, I wouldn't have known it. I was in the middle of my rage.
It would have been because of CTE, probably, if you have CTE.
If I have CTE.
Yeah, well.
Where probably by doctors, I'm probable CTE. So I can say I probably have it.
Right. So the bottom line is like a Justin Stralzik, who I played against, who was like a gentle giant, a big teddy bear from the University of Maine, Orono Bears, right? He wouldn't have driven across in upstate New York or Pennsylvania or wherever he was across a median and run into a gas truck head on and killed himself. Without some effects from the CTE. I honestly believe that. But we know what we've been talking about. Aldon Smith's parents are trying to get to that unbiased decision or through an autopsy, like you would mentioned, Rico. I want to know, you've been on a journey. You had that moment where possible CTE or definite repeated head impacts affected your life physiologically, behaviorally, emotionally, even to the point where you couldn't even walk through an airport. Tell us about that and end this in hope with what you've been able to do.
Hold on, Rico. Time out. Hold on. During this podcast and this episode, I just unruled a whole bunch of things that I don't remember I unruled. Did I say anything wrong or out of character that I need to talk about? When I unloaded here a few minutes ago, I don't remember it. Did I say anything wrong or not right, or criticize or do something I shouldn't have done, or said something I shouldn't have said?
I don't think so. We'll find out in editing.
Okay. Paul, do you think I did?
Well, no, you get very definitive saying, I'm not going to let somebody get away with, killing their wife or their family and blame it on CTE. Well, Rico backed it up with, came back at it with the story of paranoia. And again, the kid that walked into the NFL building and killed 3 or 4 people, who knows? The kid
That's
that
premeditated to drive from California clear to freaking New York,
so
park on the avenue,
so Corey,
walk in.
so Corey, the point is, who are we to say CTE caused the paranoia or not? Or who are we to say it's not due to CTE? We don't know that. And there's evidence that
well,
it
how about
is.
this? Yeah, and also, I mean, I gave you some insight, not just about the individual, but their families and their children and those others that were impacted and affected by it. So, let's dive deeper and get to know these people and get to understand them and support them before we want to judge them. It's not our position to judge, all these individuals. If we're seeing flags in them, we need to make more people aware of what the flags are. And if they start to see sudden changes in a loved one and they have a repetitive hit history, to start considering this path and start at least thinking about this could potentially be what they're dealing with. Because the one thing you don't want it to do is just to keep running its course unchecked, because that's not a good outcome. So that's the thing I hope that we can get people to take away from this is, don't make it a stigma, because these are athletes that are proud, that are high performers, that egos can get in the way. Don't make it like, this is a defect in them. It's not. It's something that happened to them. And then make sure that their families can see the symptoms and the signs. Their family know how to be a good spouse or how to help them manage their triggers so that they don't have outbursts, that they can eventually bring themselves down and start kind of pulling themselves back into who they were so that it doesn't keep snowballing. And then how to find the right resources, because that's the number one thing is people go, I don't know where to go. Where do I go next? How do I get that care? And that's what we need to, we want to do the assessment on the tangled up car wreck, right? Instead of looking way back here to see everything that happened before that car wreck that could have prevented the car wreck from happening. And I hate doing this diagnosis over here where it's just a mangled mess, when we don't go back and look at Aldon Smith and go back 3 years and 5 years and when he was playing, and maybe where he started at 4 years old, let's look at those kinds of things and put a bigger picture together that helps us understand more so we can protect future people.
And I think that's where I was trying to go. I think that's the realm I was trying to go is let's not, get the help before the cascade hurts.
Yeah. And I guess back to you, Paul, you wanted me to give the kind of the short and sweet wrap up.
I know. Yeah. I want to know what help that you found that has brought you kind of full circle. Please talk to us about your demise and then your search, your journey.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it a little bit. I mentioned the potential triggering event that causes a cascading. And for me, my wife at the time went into the ICU in 2021 and had a 1% chance of living. And I had to maintain a job and a lifestyle. And, we had 4 kids that went to 3 different schools, and I had to be mom and dad. And I had to literally one night gather her family together and get a pastor to give last rites, because she wasn't supposed to make it through the night, and 1% liver function, and miraculously she recovered. But from that point on, I was never the same. She came back and didn't even know me, like I was a different person. And it wasn't just mood stuff. It wasn't just, oh, I'm sad because I might lose my wife. It was over 50 symptoms that just catastrophic systemic failure of my body, of every system, mood, behavior, sleep, cognitive, etc., physical. I was only getting 13 minutes REM sleep. Just to name one thing. I had the explosive anger. I had the fight or flight response, depression, all of those things. And I knew from my history, after I started really looking at this and CTE started getting talked about more, that, hey, this could potentially be me. So I got on Facebook and I got in a couple groups, and I found out there was this red light study that now Corey's doing red light, but I was one of the first 50 athletes to do it. And University of Utah, got in there, got my scans, started using the red light device. A month in, I started seeing some subtle changes. So did my wife. And 2 months in, I really started feeling better, and I've been building on it ever since. So red light was one of the things that I really feel like literally saved my life. But as I started knocking down that symptom list that I taxed, Corey and I were talking about this earlier today, I made a list of all the symptoms, and I put at the top of it was the priority ones of what's going to kill me first, and then researching how to stop those things, which the depression was high on the list, because the depression and apathy and suicidality was very, very hit very hard. So I tried to get that stabilized first. And then I just started deep diving and, learned about supplements, natural supplements that were working, changes in my diet, and the red light and other alternative treatments like cryo and hyperbaric, and things like that really started making, every one of them just took a little bit more off the plate of what I was dealing with and what was happening to me. Currently, I'm doing really, really well. I've got a really good quality of life. I'm really happy. I've got good relationships. I don't have the suicidality. I don't have the depression I had. I don't have the explosive anger. I'm not a threat to myself or anyone else. I'm really living a pretty happy-go-lucky, grateful life now that at that point in time, things hit so hard that I didn't think I would even literally make it through a day. It was my window of existence was, if I can get through this week, and then it became, if I can get through this day, and then it was, if I can just get through this hour, and that's where you really know that things are backsliding, is when you're then going, if I can just get through this next 15 minutes, and I shared this before. I remember sitting on my bed, because of the neuro fatigue and exhaustion, and my wife coming in and getting mad at me at something. And I had a gun in the side dresser, and literally crossing my mind going, she's, kind of grinding me, and I'm going, do I go downstairs right now and make a sandwich, or do I go pull that gun and eat a bullet? I mean, and both of those had the same, in my mind, sounded like the same, answer, like a good response. Either of them were equal options. Well, you go make a sandwich or you eat a bullet. I mean, there was nothing in there that should have been there, that's always been there, to tell me, no, that has a really bad lasting consequence. In fact, that's got a finalized consequence if you do that, right? That wasn't there. It's there back again now, but it wasn't there at that time. And I don't have any mental health issues. I don't have any other issues, but I do have scans that a neurologist saw that didn't know my history, that when he saw my prefrontal cortex, where all this resides, he said, you look like you're the victim of a gunshot wound to the head, because there was so much damage up there, and so much of that tissue is destroyed. And so that, again, reinforces that don't fault the person, love that person even more, and try to help them get these answers, because their brain is not working, and they're going to need more help and guidance. And they're going to need somebody that knows them, that on that daily basis is kind of being that thermometer for them, and just checking things and going, okay, you're running a little hot today. We got, and being that gauge to make sure that they're staying within their normal, and helping keep those triggers away, and helping them stay focused, and being a good caregiver. That's really a key to this, is having that support and having people around you, and then eventually learning your own tools so that you can self-monitor. And that's where I'm at now. I'm at a place where I definitely can self-regulate, and I know when I'm off. I know when I'm having one of those days where it could slide and I need to either take a nap or shift gears or not hyper focus on whatever it was that's causing this trauma and pivot. But it's a daily, it's a lifetime task, really. It's like sobriety with alcoholics. I hear it all the time. They say, I'm never not an alcoholic. I'm always going to be an alcoholic even when I'm sober. And every day is a new start to that clock of keeping that sobriety and keeping that pledge. And I think with brain health, it's the same. I'm never going to be who I was. It's a reality. There's too much damage. But I can certainly take a lot of the variables out that might cause this to not be the kind of life that I want it to be. So.
Dang, Rico, as
Now that's
always,
one.
man. You're awesome. I love to have you on because you're so articulate and so thought process on everything that you can really tell that you are educated beyond educated on this and that you strive to really help others in this disease, where I'm striving to help others, and so is Paul. But I'm still at the I'm hurt phase. I'm still at the I need help phase. And without my wife, I probably wouldn't be here. I mean, my wife keeps me in check. My wife, when things go, sit down, slow down, breathe, do what you need to. Come on, check yourself. And so I'm real thankful when we get a chance to have you on and talk, because of the way you talk about it and articulate and explain that you do much better than I believe Paul or I do. But we all got our purpose.
Well,
we all have our angle
Corey,
to this experience.
Yeah, and Corey, I got to tell you, you are in it, but you help people. I mean, I've seen you, I've heard you help people on support groups. You helped a person that's become a friend, a whole family who helped 2 weeks ago for 5-6 hours over the span of a couple of days. So you might not remember everything you're doing, but you are helping people, and that's a feather in your cap, and Saint Peter might meet you at the gate, Corey, and say you helped 73, 100,000 people, 1,000,000 people, so you're in. But anyway,
but there's but two points to that. Like you mentioned, Corey, I was in search and rescue for a while, and one of the first rule we had is you can't save someone else until you're in a safe position, right?
Right.
So,
right.
You're working on that, which is really commendable. You're doing the work, you're learning more, you're talking to more experts, and you're sharing it through this podcast. But I think the second thing that has kept me going and continuing to get better is what you guys also do too, is I try to engage in our community because it needs it. The brain injury community and the TBI community and the CTE community. There are families that are just lost and heartbroken and devastated and want their loved one back. And there's individuals that have been isolating and alone and not understanding what's happening to them. And just your shared experience will make them not feel alone. And if they don't feel alone, then that gives them just a little light and a little hope that somebody else is there to walk this with me. And when you walk it with somebody else, it also makes you personally accountable. I can't, at this point in my life, I'm so vested in our community that if I did something, but if I had an unfortunate event, let's say, it would hurt a lot of other people and it would disappoint them, and it would feel like there wasn't hope. So yeah, that's something that's like brother's keeper, just like our football teams and our sports. When that you might be the lifeline for somebody else, it's going to keep you around. So
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. That's,
sorry, this was supposed to end on a happy note. I'm
well, this is
getting a
going to
little
end
reflect on things, but it is something that I'm passionate about, and I think that that's the way that we bring the most hope and help to people is just humanize this. Don't demonize the players. Don't demonize the families. Don't speculate. Don't take a position of power like a top NFL player or a broadcaster and use that to set those people back and isolate them and shame them. Don't do that. There's no need for that. Give them love. Give them even if you don't believe in CTE, give it the benefit of the doubt because nobody in their right mind would fucking fake this. There is no way. Nobody wants to live this life. Nobody wants to wake up every day and spin that wheel of symptoms and go, what am I dealing with today? Oh, hey, great. I have neuropathy today and I can't move. Oh, hey, great. I got 4 minutes of REM sleep last night because I had, whatever. I mean, give these people a chance, and the way you give them a chance is support them and care for them. So and don't alienate them. So it'd be nice that Aldon Smith would have had the same kind of support from the team and the owners and the community that he in his after program and after the NFL as he did when he was playing, because we might have a different outcome.
There's no doubt about that. It's all about relationship. It's all about it. We isolate. Do not isolate. Don't isolate. Please pick up the phone. I mean, Corey, has said numerous times, he picks up the phone sometimes because he's in a squirrely situation, but he doesn't tell me, hey, Paul, I'm in a squirrely situation. He'll say, hey, and we'll just talk about the gym. We'll talk about the weather. We'll talk about whatever. Oh, the weather sucks today. The barometric pressures, I'm off. And it's, we have to be there for each other.
Yes.
Now, I am going to, so that you gave us a word of hope, and thank you. And that's needed for families that are dealing with guys and gals that have been subjected to repeated head impacts. GABA. You can only get GABA from fermented foods or alcohol?
Yeah, I mean, you can get it from a couple other food options, but the most absorbable ways are fermented foods. So kimchi, sauerkraut, Greek yogurt, and then some of the other foods that are not those, because I know those are hard to eat every day, but those are some of the ones that work. There is also a chewable tablet that you can take.
Really?
I'm only going to say the company and the brand because it's the only one I've used that I feel personally works for me. Again, it's not medical advice. I'm not a sponsor. I'm not a paid promoter, but there's a company called Natural Factors that makes what they call a pharma GABA chewable, and it comes in 100 milligram and 250 milligram. They have a website. You can get it on Amazon even. It's about $23, something like that. When you take these, it's called pharma GABA because they use the same fermentation process that you get from all those other things. So it mimics the same way that your body would get these, other than, so the chewable, you chew it, absorbs to the mouth. You'll get a response within 5 to 10 minutes, and it puts the brakes on that fight or flight, the amygdala hijack, and it creates a sense of calm in the body. And it typically one tablet will last 4 to 6 hours. In my brain injury group, we share best practice. There's been probably 25, 30 people that have suspected CTE or TBI injuries that have dealt with fight or flight that use these tablets and have had incredible success. They say it literally calms their system down. Some of them that have not been able to go out in public in crowded spaces like we were talking about have taken these. They can go do it. I personally, when I was having trouble flying, was using them, and it calmed me. So when I would get on a plane, so That's a really good one. That's a great, easy tool. It's no side effects,
Tell
100%
us the
safe.
name.
The
Tell us the
company
name
name
again.
is Natural. The company name is Natural Factors, and the product is called Pharma GABA Chewables. Don't get
Right.
capsules. They sell also a capsule that goes into the gut. When it gets to the gut, it breaks down just like glutathione, and it doesn't absorb the same. So the only way that I've been able to actually get that type of neuro response and breaking is through the chewable form of it. And that's why I have to say the specific brand, because I don't know anybody else that's actually making a chewable version.
Right.
Nor have I seen
Right.
anybody else get the same kind of results using anything else. So,
Text that to me, Rico.
yeah,
When
absolutely.
we're done, can you text that to me? Because
Yeah,
I'm trying to
I'll send it to
remember
you.
it, and I already forgot
Maybe
it.
they'll become
So
maybe they'll become one of your new sponsors. Who knows? But
There you go. We'll give him a call.
yeah, text that to me
what a
because I've already forgot the name of it. So
yeah,
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to see you, Rico, and thank you for joining us. And we got to do it again sooner than
yeah.
later.
Thanks for having me. Always love coming on with you guys. You guys always are on the front edge of the topics of the day with CTE and CTE related care and support and advocacy. So thank you for everything you guys are doing. Keep it up. It matters. There aren't enough voices, out there right now. So as long as we keep having the Whitlocks out there, we need to have a counter voice that helps parents and people make good informed choices and smart choices about the future of their children and their loved ones. So
yeah, powerful.
And what's the name of your Facebook group?
Our Facebook group is called the CTE and TBI Warrior Circle. So it's a private group. You can find it on Facebook. We try to keep it for brain injured people, and also we do allow caregivers to be in the group as well, because it helps them to see what people with CTE or suspected CTE might be experiencing, and I think it does just as much good for them as it does for the warrior. So what we try to do is, again, it's not medical advice. We share best practices. We share research. We share clinical trials that might be available. We share what's working for people, and we talk about what's not working for people. And so it just, the whole goal of that group when I set it up was to try to get more information out there to help people with this, because the doctors don't know. You can't find reliable stuff online. You can't get medical help necessarily. And I think that people that are living it truly understand it and offer you the best chance at finding things that might work with your symptoms and condition and help based on kind of the collective mindset of what's working for us. And we've had some great breakthroughs through the group, of things that are working for us that are truly making differences in people's life with all the things I just talked about: mood, behavior, cognitive, sleep, physical. There's a lot of great best practices that have come out of the group, which makes me really proud of what we're doing. So
That's
Great.
awesome. That is awesome. Paul, you want to wrap us up and finish this off?
Well, I did definitely appreciate you, Rico. Corey, appreciate you. Love you guys, and we still have a lot of talking to do to educate the parents that 7-year-olds' brains are not even close to being developed to the point where they can actually sustain repeated head impacts without causing brain damage. And I don't care if you damage one of the 100 billion neurons. That's considered brain damage. And man, if we could just get through the education to the parents and teach them uh, teach them that they're responsible for their child's health if they're strapping a helmet on a 7-year-old kid. So that's kind of my plight right now, and I know we agree on a lot of that, Corey. And stay alert, stay alive, sign, subscribe, whatever you do to enhance
Share.
the algorithms.
Please share.
Share.
Yeah, please share these so we can get a wider audience. You
Yeah.
know, that will help us all a lot too. Because if we just get in front of 1 or 2 people and they don't know anything about CTE and they tell 2 or 3 people, that's how we kind of build some support. So.
And I got to give Paul kudos before we leave. I got to give him big kudos.
Uh-oh.
He went to an NFL kids camp. No hitting, but he went to an NFL summer kids camp. Do you know what hat he wore? Don't knock it. Stop CTE.org. I've got to give it to the man. He went to an NFL camp wearing the right hat.
You saw that,
Well
Corey? Good deal.
Yes, I did.
I was like,
now the question will be is if he gets invited back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
all righty, guys. Well, y'all enjoy. Thank you so much, Rico, for all your time as always. I love talking with you. You're a great guest and you're a really good friend, and you've been an asset to helping me on my journey. Thank you, Paul, as always. Hopefully you get to go get some Bella time with you tonight. Take Bella out to dinner. And Bella's his daughter, so don't get no naughty thinking. When I say Bella time, it's daughter time.
Daddy-daughter.
Daddy-daughter time. So
right.
You guys go enjoy. Have a good evening. We'll talk to you later. I don't know what's coming on next week, so I ain't going to tell you. Stay tuned. Stay alert for Monday, 3 p.m. We have a download. Have a good one.
Thank you. Good night.
This podcast is for general information only and does not constitute the practice of medicine. The use of this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard and delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.